إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي قد أفلح المؤمنون الذين هم في صلاتهم خاشعون أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. My brothers here and brothers and sisters who are watching the second part of the virtues and how to improve khushu in Salah. Just a recap, because it's been few months since I conducted my first part of the series on khushu. Now, before I indulge into the recap of the previous discussion, I would like to narrate to you some important aspect of why it is important for Muslims to not only perform their salah, but to develop the khushu, which we translated to be concentration, calmness, tranquility, so on and so forth. Now, if we look at the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we see from his seerah and how he also advocated the khushu to the Sahabas. If you see, Rasulullah would wake up in the middle of the night for tahajjud, forsaking his bed, forsaking the pleasure of sleep, and then he would stand up and he would start reciting Surah Al-Fatiha, and then he would recite Surah Al-Baqarah, and then from there he will move on to Al-Imran, An-Nisa, Al-Ma'idah, and then the hadith tells us, and he will prolong his ruku and sujood the same amount of time he would have recited the Qur'an, the surahs of the Qur'an for that Qiyamul Layl. Now, the question is, how did Rasulullah have the energy to do that? And how did the Sahabas cultivated the same idea into their life, that they also got attached to the worship of Allah? We also understand from the seerah of the Sahabas that when the day concludes, when Isha is completed, you will see there is a sadness in the face of the Sahabas, that the connection between them and Allah is now put to rest until the next day. That is how much they loved standing before Allah in their salah. And this cannot be achieved until and unless we also develop the sense of khushu when we stand before Allah. So that is the reason why we have to indulge into understanding what are the hadith that presents khushu, the importance of khushu, and how it should be practiced in our day-to-day life. In my previous part, we glanced over the topics in focus. The first one is the purpose of creation, definition and virtue of Salah, concealment of khushu, rulings on khushu, the meaning and developing khushu in Salah, knowing the advantages of khushu in Salah, warding off distractions and things that adversely affect Salah, khushu, and when a person suffers a great deal of waswasa. This is how we will end. The things that disturbs and distracts every single person when you stand up in Salah. If you really analyze, Salah is a test of patience. If you want to really know how patient you are, look at your Salah. Because Salah is when things that you may do on a regular basis becomes haram. Right? When you say Allahu Akbar and you tie your hands in your prayer, in your Salah, you can't speak, you can't move around freely, you can't itch yourself unless it's required, you can't adjust your attire unless it's required. So there is a restriction from doing the activities that a human being would do on another time. But in Salah, once you say Allahu Akbar, you can't look right, you can't look left, you can't look up. You have to focus. And then if you also analyze, Salah is a command that was not given to the Prophet ﷺ in dunya, like other deeds. The other deeds and rituals that is given to Rasulullah ﷺ were given on earth. But Salah, to stand before Allah 5 times a day, was granted to him in Jannah. When he traveled there to meet his Lord, Allah gifted him with Salah. So the importance of Salah can also be realized when you look at the Hadith, where Rasulullah ﷺ is leading the prophets in their Salah. You see? So when Musa alayhi salam is resting now, he's coming for Salah. So you can see all the prophets understood and valued Salah and the sweetness of Salah. That's why when the call was made, they could come. Right? So this is how, in order for every single Muslim to achieve, if not to that degree, at least to certain extent, how we are going to achieve. So this is what I'm going to be discussing, in the virtues of khushu and how to achieve it. And then further, the reason why this subject is so important, like I always said, any hadith that is connected to hellfire, or it is connected to the last days, the signs of the last days, are things as Muslims you should take extra precautions. Because we as Muslims do not want to fall into those pitfalls where Rasulullah ﷺ has already foretold us to avoid it. And then there is a clear hadith of Rasulullah ﷺ where he said the first act that the slave will be accountable for on the day of judgment will be prayer. So the first act that Allah will ever question us will be on our Salah. How did we conduct our 5 times a day prayer? If it is good, then the rest of his acts will be good. And if it is deficient, then the rest of his acts will be deficient. So Salah is not only a test of patience for every Muslim, but it's also a criteria where Allah is going to judge the other act of worship, and this is the pinnacle point of where every other act will fall in. And it was the first act of worship that was made obligatory by Allah. Allah made Salah obligatory before He made anything else compulsory. It is the last thing to be taken away from the religion. Though this religion will lose itself, slowly Allah will take away this religion until mankind is put to complete destruction. The last thing that will be taken away from us will be Salah. Because Prophet ﷺ said there will come a time where people will hear the shahada and they will say, we heard this from our forefathers. So they even forgot. And they'll hear about Salah and they will say, yeah, we heard this about prayers from our forefathers. So that generation has completely forgotten the purpose of creation. When it perishes, Islam will perish. So once Salah is gone, then Islam is gone. Its obligation was revealed directly to Prophet ﷺ during his ascension to the heavens. So this is where Prophet ﷺ received the gift of Salah. And it was made obligatory upon every sane and adult Muslim. And we also discussed the Arabic word Salah originates from the word Sila, which means to connect. So Salah means to connect to your Creator, to talk to Him in the way He has ordained that we should talk to Him. The Islamic definition of Salah is the name given to a formal prayer of Islam. That is the definition. The Salah is one of the obligatory rites of the religion to be performed 5 times a day by every obedient adult Muslim. We also discussed that in the fiqh of Islam, that people who are not known for their 5 times a day Salah are not allowed to be buried in a Muslim cemetery. This is a fiqh. So if you know a person, XYZ, have passed away, and you know this person is not known for his Salah, then he should not be buried in a Muslim cemetery. The scholars tell us he should be buried in an abandoned barren land, somewhere away from where the righteous are put to rest. So that is how serious this is. And according to the ulama of all the 4 schools, they have considered abandoning Salah purposely as a major sin. And some of the scholars have said whosoever abandons it purposely without any valid reason must be given capital punishment. That's how serious this subject is. That's why I have to relate all this fiqh. So as listeners and as a presenter myself, I take seriously what I'm going to learn through the series. Now the Salah is one of the and it is connection between the human and the Creator. So Salah is where you connect yourself and your Creator. And then we also said we also examined the virtues of Salah. Certainly, there's some words are not coming, brother. Okay, my Arabic's not coming. Okay. In the Qur'an, the ayah I just read to you, Allah says in Surah Mu'minun, verse 1 and 2, He said, certainly will the believers have succeeded. So here Allah gives a guarantee that the believers will be the ones who will have succeeded. Succeeded means ultimately you reach your paradise, your Jannah. And then Allah puts a condition. Now who are these believers? Is it every single Muslim? Is it everyone who claims to be Muslims? Or is it everyone who fills the census form where religion comes, they put Muslim? Are those that Rasulullah the Qur'an is talking about? Allah puts a condition. He says, certainly will the believers have succeeded. And the second ayah, Allah says, they who are during their prayer humbly submit. So this is the word khushu. The word khushu is used here where Allah uses the translation as khushu is translated as humbly submissive. And then khushu, the definition of khushu is khushu'un means those with fear, and with tranquility, Salah becomes delight and a joy for the eyes. So for those who are looking at developing khushu in their Salah, will develop fear, the fear of standing before the Creator, and with tranquility. So there's a calmness, there's tranquility in the mind, and Salah becomes delight and a joy to the eyes for the person who performs it. And then in the virtues of Salah, we also discussed the importance and the dividing line between a one who believes and the one who disbelieves. The Prophet ﷺ said, the covenant between us and them is prayer. So the agreement between us, the Muslims, and the one who disbelieves in Allah and the last day is that of a Salah, your prayer. So if anyone abandons it, he has become a disbeliever. So this is the reason why the scholars have taken very stern steps or position for a person who abandons the prayer, that he should be given capital punishment. And in another hadith, Prophet ﷺ said, what lies between a man and a disbelief is the abandonment of Salah, abandonment of prayer. So the one who abandons it deliberately, he automatically exits Islam. Of course, some scholars have given a lot of conditions to this, but majority of the scholars take the hadith plainly. They say if Salah is the dividing point between belief and disbelief, belief, iman and kufr, then anyone who abandons it, then he has entered into kufr. Based on many hadith, the scholars have concluded that. Now, Now, another hadith, Prophet ﷺ said, if there was a river at the door of any one of you and he took a bath in it 5 times a day, would you notice any dirt on him? Then the Sahaba said, no, not a trace of dirt would be left. The Prophet ﷺ added, he said, that is the example of a 5 daily prayers with which Allah plots out evil deeds. So Salah is sila. You connect to Allah. You not only connect to Allah, but it's a form of purification from all the minor sins a person may commit knowingly or unknowingly. So here Rasulullah ﷺ gives a beautiful analogy. If there is a river by a person's house and he takes a shower or he cleans himself in that shower, in that water 5 times a day, will there be any form of dirt? The Sahaba said, no, ya Rasulullah. That's the analogy he has given it to 5 times a day daily prayer. So anyone who prays and who understands the meaning of Salah and he understands and develops the meaning to develop the khushu, then inshallah his prayer will be as what you see in the hadith of Rasulullah sallam. And then we also expounded on the definition of khushu. Khushu means calmness. So you don't rush your Salah. Remember, don't rush your Salah, because Allah says, I am time. And don't curse time. Allah Himself is time. So if you're rushing your Salah for whatever reason, remember, Allah is the controller of that affair. So calmness is very important. As soon as you stand in Salah, you have to be calm. Inshallah, as we go, I will tell you how to achieve that. Number 2 is tranquility. You're at peace within yourself and you're at peace with your worship. There's nothing that is going through your mind and disturbing you. And then you stand facing Allah with dignity. That's also considered khushu. And then you have humility. You humble yourself before the creator of everything. The one who created everything and who sustains everything. So once you understand this concept, that you're standing before not a king, not a president or prime minister or someone in authority, but you are standing in front of King of all kings, who created everything from nothing and who sustains it. So once you implant that idea into yourself, khushu inshallah will develop. And what makes a person have this khushu is a fear of Allah, is a conscious that your creator is watching you and is going to call you for account. And the sense that He is always watching you. All right? Remember, one of the shuyukh in the past, during the early period of Islamic time, one of the student was given a test. The teachers told him, because he couldn't avoid sinning, right? So he told his teacher, I can't avoid sinning, that somehow I fall into some form of sin. So the teacher told the student, if you want to sin, then you have to sin where Allah don't see you. So the student said, Ya Sheikh, how can that be? Because Allah is watching. Exactly. So when Allah is watching you, once you put that into your mind, when you know the angels are taking record, then sin will become a distance evil that you will not fall into. That is the whole process of praying, you see. The whole exercise of 5 times a day reminder is not just a certain physical movement. The purpose of Salah is not a physical movement, because I've seen some people talk about the physical benefits of Salah. See, those are added bonus. Those are byproducts. We as Muslims are not concerned whether praying 5 times a day or doing sujood and ruku is equal to doing yoga. That I don't want to go into that tangents. It's not my cup of tea. Salah, Rasulullah said, is cooling to my eyes. So we stick to that. And then khushu means that the heart stands before the Lord in humility and submission. That's what khushu means. Now, Salah is the greatest of all practical pillars of Islam, and khushu khushu in prayer is required by Sharia. Khushu in prayer happens when a person empties his heart for the prayer, and focuses on to the exclusion of all else, and prefers it to everything else. So once you stand before Allah, skip away your dunya. Skip away everything, you're going to face Allah, and just stand with that intention. That's what Prophet ﷺ said, and my joy has been made in Salah. So Allah has made the joy for the Prophet ﷺ in Salah. And one of the benefits of khushu is that it makes prayer easier for a person. You see, if you don't have khushu, Salah becomes very difficult. It becomes very, very difficult that, you have to do your wudu, and then, wipe yourself dry, and then stand before Allah. So if you develop khushu, your Salah becomes more easy and interesting. Khushu is very important, but it is something that is easily lost, and it rarely seen. Khushu is something nobody can see. It's between you and your Rabb, especially in our times, which are the last hours. Prophet ﷺ said, the first thing of your religion that you will lose is khushu. The first thing that you will lose in your prayer will be khushu. And the last thing that you will lose of your religion is Salah. So now you make it up. So Rasulullah ﷺ said the first thing the ummah will lose will be khushu. You won't have focus. And Rasulullah ﷺ said towards the end of times, people will not pray properly. Everyone is in a rush. Even the imams are in a rush. That's what I don't understand. Followers in a rush, I can understand to a certain extent. But an imam who's nominated, who's been paid by the management of the masjid, is in a rush. Sometimes I pray and I can't even finish my Al-Fatiha, Imam is already in ruku. So Rasulullah said the first thing that you will lose will be khushu. And the last that will be taken away from us will be our 5 times a day Salah. There may be a person praying who has no goodness in him, and soon you will enter the mosque and not find anyone who has khushu. So Prophet ﷺ, soon you will enter upon masjid, where you will find people praying, but there will be nothing in their heart that attaches them to the Salah. So there are 2 aspects to Salah. One is a physical aspect, one is a spiritual. We are focusing on the spiritual aspect of Salah through this series. Prophet ﷺ also said, beware of the khushu of the hypocrisy. So khushu can also be from an hypocrite. So we don't have to develop hypocrisy. He was asked, what is the khushu of hypocrisy? He said, when the body shows khushu, that there is no khushu in the heart. So you have a lot of movement in the body. Your shoulders are moving, your head is moving. But Prophet ﷺ said that is not the khushu of the heart, but it's the khushu of your body parts, which is the khushu of the hypocrites. Now, it was disliked for a man to show more khushu than he had in his heart. Again, khushu must be in due proportion to your Salah. You should not be under, you should not be over. So Prophet ﷺ, it said it is disliked for a man to show more khushu than he had in his heart. One of them saw a man showing khushu in his shoulder and body and said, oh so and so, khushu is here. And he pointed to the chest. And he said, not here. And he pointed to the shoulders. So the man who rebuked someone who was showing too much of khushu, he said khushu is in the heart, it is not in your shoulders. And Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah said the khushu of true faith is when the heart feels aware and humble before the greatness and glory of Allah, and is filled with awe, fear and shyness, so that utterly humbled the heart is before Allah, and broken as it were with fear, shyness, love and the reconciliation of the blessings, a recognition of the blessings of Allah and its own sins. So when you stand before Allah, so Ibn al-Qayyim explains what is the khushu of a true faith. Is that you stand before Allah filled with fear, the awe, fear, and the shyness. Shyness from what? Shyness from sin. Right? The shyness of sin, that you committed sin. That's why one of the Sahaba, he said that, I think it's Ali radiallahu anhu who said that, do not belittle any sin. Because the one you're committing the sin against, that's what counts. It's not the sin itself, but who are you committing it against? It's against Allah. The magnitude is much bigger. And in another narration, it said that do not belittle any sin. To belittle any sin, is a sin on itself. So no sin we should look down upon. Everything, sin is a sin. Right? So once you have this in the shyness of sin, then inshallah your khushu will develop. So no doubt, the khushu of the heart is followed by the khushu of the body. As for the khushu of the hypocrisy, it is something that is put on with a great show where there is no khushu in the heart. May Allah protect us. May Allah protect us from falling into the signs of hypocrisy. When we worship Allah, we want to ensure that we worship Him with true faith, without anything that's being associated. Now, khushu from this hadith, we realize it is concealed. Unlike Salah. Salah is something people can see. When you're praying, everyone can see. Unless you're standing at night and doing your tahajjud, where nobody sees. But khushu, unlike Salah, is something that is concealed in the heart, just like your iman. Iman is something, faith is something you cannot see. Right? That's what Rasulullah said 3 times, pointing to the chest. He said, Iman is here. Iman is here. Iman is here. Right? Now we move on to the rulings on khushu. What is it? To have khushu is fard? Is it wajib? Is it sunnah? What is this? The scholars tell us, according to more correct view, khushu is obligatory. It's compulsory, according to the correct view. So as Muslims, we should develop, if not 100%, at least a certain percentage of khushu, focus and concentration when we pray. The Qur'an tells us in Surah Baqarah, verse 45, Allah says, and seek help in patience and al-salah, and truly it is extremely heavy and hard except for the humble submitters. So Allah makes it very, very clear. Khushu is not easy on people who pretend. It is only easy upon al-khashi'uns. It's easy on those who are obedient to Allah. This implies condemnation of those who are not khushu. Those who don't have khushu, it's condemned in this ayah of the Qur'an that these are not people of true faith. Condemnation only applies when something obligatory is not done and when something forbidden is done. If those who do not have khushu are to be condemned, this indicates that khushu is obligatory. So it's important, and this is rarely spoken, right? We have people inviting others to Salah. We have people explaining to us the importance of praying with the Jama'ah. But not many of us really focus, once the person is on board into the masjid, how should he develop his connection with his Creator? So this is really greatly amiss. It is so much missed in this ummah that our prayer has become a ritual, whether in the masjid or off the masjid. All we need is just go for the sake of going. Iqamah is given, Allahu Akbar, and you do certain postures and then you head back home. That is not the purpose. That is not the essence of Salah. The essence of Salah is, as the Qur'an says, it should bring you out of sin. and it should make you love your salah more and more. If that is not achieved, then the salah is just a show, just a certain physical postures and movement, and then you head back and do your thing. Just like any other faith, if we look at people from other faith, they also pray, right? They may not pray 5 times a day, but they do pray. Some people pray in the morning, some people pray at night, some people go once in a week to pray. But there's no concept of khushu in their faith. They just have to pray. So they just have to present themselves in a religious place, or present themselves in a religious room in the house, and they're done. And that's exactly how we are today too, right? Now, the fact that khushu is obligatory is also indicated by another ayah in Surah Al-Mu'minun, verse 1 and 2, that's what I read, and then verse 10 and 12. Khushu is obligatory in prayer, and this includes calmness and khushu. Whosoever pegs like a crow in his sujood does not have khushu. Anyone who goes to sujood and is like behaving like a crow, lifting his head here and there, that means he has no khushu. And whosoever does not raise his head fully from ruku. So once you're in ruku, you have to come out fully. Unless you do that bowing and pause for a while. So you come out from ruku, you stand straight until the entire body is straight. If you don't do that before you go to your ruku, before you go down into sujood, it is not calm. So your salah must be done in a very calm fashion, not in a rush. Because calmness implies doing things at a measured pace. So that person who does not do things at a measured pace is not calm. Whoever is not calm does not have khushu in his ruku or sujood. And whoever does not have khushu is a sinner. Now this is a ruling on khushu. And another indication that khushu in prayer is obligatory is the fact that Prophet ﷺ warned those who do not have khushu. This is how we draw the line, where when Prophet ﷺ has given a warning to an act, that means that act becomes obligatory. Such as the one who lifts his gaze to the sky in prayer, because his movement and raising of gaze goes against the idea of khushu. So Rasulullah said, don't look up straight into the heavens when you are in salah. And Prophet ﷺ warned us that if you do that, Allah may take away your vision. So you're not supposed to wander with your eyes, but you have to look where your place of prostration is. At the same time, in Islamic prayer, we don't keep our eyes closed. Unlike other religious beliefs where they do certain prayer with the eyes closed. The reason being is that when you close your eyes, you are completely disconnected from your surroundings. You see? So that's why you're supposed to keep your eyes open, be aware of your surroundings, at the same time you are connected to your Creator. Right? I think we'll end with this much because there's a lot of information to digest. With this I'll conclude, inshallah. If you brothers have any questions pertaining to the subject, please feel free to raise it up, and I'll be happy to answer those, inshallah. Yes.
Nowadays, I feel it's really difficult to get khushu in the salah.
Yes.
So does that mean that my prayer is not accepted?
No, inshallah, as we go with the series, I will explain to you how the rewarding system is designed by Allah. Right? But to give you a brief understanding, the reward that you will attain for your salah will be based on the level of khushu you have. So it's not absolutely zero. It's not absolutely zero. And also, I need to tell you that nobody can have 110% khushu. That's impossible. That's impossible, right? Because you're a human. So we are not going to go into that extreme, not to this extreme, where you have none or you have so much, which is not possible. Which is not possible. That's why I said in the Islamic form of salah, in the Islamic form of worship, you don't shut your eyes. See, shutting your eyes may give you better khushu, right? May give you better focus. That's the reason why people who do meditation usually close their eyes. But in the Islamic way of worship, Islam wants you to connect you to this world, to your surroundings. At the same time, you are aware of your Creator. So it balances it out very well. You see? So inshallah, as we go in this series, I will tell you there's a hadith of Prophet ﷺ who said you will be rewarded according to your khushu. If your khushu was 10%, you get that much of reward. If your khushu was 35, then you get that much of reward. The ajr, the rewarding system is based on your khushu and your effort that you're putting into developing concentration in your prayer. So it's never zero, it's never 110. It is somewhere in between. And it is natural, right? One day maybe your spirit is high, so you want to really, your khushu is so high that you do perform well. Sometimes distractions of dunya, affairs, issues, does distract you. So you may be just praying just to fulfill your obligation. These things happen. But if these things don't happen, then we become angels. We are no longer humans. You see? So the first thing I need to really emphasize here when I do the series is that I don't want to give a wrong image to the listeners that, I'm talking about Sahabas who had so much of khushu that they were disconnected with their surroundings. No. They very well knew their surroundings. How? If you look at the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, I don't know anybody who can have so much khushu like Rasulullah. But when he was standing in tahajjud in the house, before he go for sujood, he would what? Poke Aisha radiallahu anha, because her feet would come to where the sujood is. So before you do sujood, Aisha's radiallahu anha's foot will reach where the sujood is. So he will just pinch her, so she will move away, so he can do sujood. So though he is so much into his salah, but he's very well aware of the surroundings too. Right? This is practical. You can't just close your eyes and say, you can connect. No, this is not the form of the prophetical style. That is not the prophetical method of achieving khushu. You are connected here. From the heart, you're connected to your Lord. But from vision and from your earrings, you can hear, you can see, you know what's happening around you. Right? This is how you should understand khushu. Any other questions, brother?
In your presentation, you mentioned basically what differentiates Muslims or believers and non-believers are basically Salah. So when it comes to advising fellow Muslims to take their prayer seriously, this is not the best hadith to throw at them.
Yep.
So what is your approach,
Okay.
for example, when it comes to advising your brothers or sisters in faith
Okay.
to take their Salah seriously?
Okay. Now, when it comes to advising people, one of the grave mistakes people make, especially those who became righteous out of the blue, they want to change everything overnight. Remember, if you're advising someone for the sake of Allah, if it's purely for the sake of Allah and for the pleasure of Allah, then you should not allow ego to come in between. Right? Even if those people decline, even if they make a mockery at you or laugh at you, doesn't matter. You did only for the pleasure of Allah. You did your part. So no ego there. Now, how do you advise a fellow Muslim, brother or sister, who are not as strict with their prayer as they're supposed to be. Now, one of the analogy I would always use with a lot of the brothers and sisters is that I will never quote the hadith where Prophet said, the dividing line between the one who prays and the one who doesn't pray. I mean, the one who believes and the one who don't believe is his prayer. I would ask them a simple question. I ask them if they are working people. I will ask them, you go to work. When you go to work, you expect what? Reward in return. That's your salary. And this salary is not given to you before you complete the task. It's given to you when you have already completed a month or a week, depending on which zone you live in. In some countries, it's 1 week salary cycle. And then because you get this pay, you make sure that you arrive at work on time. You ensure that you follow the company policies and the norms. Am I correct? They say yes. But you know what? Allah gave you everything without you asking for it. He gave you everything. He didn't give it to you in installments. Everything was already given to us before we came out from the mother's womb. And then gradually we grow to maturity. And now Allah is only asking you one thing. Pray to me. And 5 times a day is not 5 hours. If we include taking wudu and standing before Salah in prayer, maximum 7 minutes? Maximum 7 minutes to 8 minutes, or maybe 10 minutes. And 10 minutes of standing before Allah to acknowledge the favor He has given you. Forget asking Him what you want. That is a second category, right? Primarily, you worship Allah not to just ask what you want, but to acknowledge that He has given you everything. Because one day you fall sick, you know what constraints you go through. But Allah makes sure that you are healthy. You see, so when you use these kind of day-to-day life examples, it will reach their heart. It will reach, but it will take time. Sometimes they'll say, I'm working, how can I take place? Sometimes they say, how can I pray in the corridor? This is all from shaitan. All you need is a prayer mat, and you should be in the state of wudu, purified. Pray. Doesn't matter where it is. One of the gift that was given to Prophet ﷺ that was not given to the other prophets, that Allah has made the entire earth as a place to worship Allah. So don't worry, as long as there is no nearby garbage or anything, inshallah, in the waswasa part, I will be dealing with the places and areas that you should avoid when you pray, if you want to develop a khushu, and you'll be surprised. Some of the points that I'm going to tell you is something that sometimes we actually fall into it, right? But inshallah, we'll discuss that as we go. So when you give anyone a simple example, I think they will understand it. You see? And like I said, don't expect changes overnight, because we didn't change overnight. It took us time. And it was, Allah willed that we should be righteous. It's not really our efforts. Allah willed it, that's why we are here. Though we are limited in number, but we are here. Right? And Allah willed those brothers and sisters who are watching us right now that they should listen to this and take some lessons from it. So, invite people with beautiful preachings and be humble. And leave it there. We don't need to point fingers and criticize nobody. Because the moment you go in that line, you're going to lose people. People are not going to listen to you anymore. And if you look at the life of all the prophets, right, Allah never told them to be aggressive. Even when Allah commanded Musa, alayhi salam, who is he going to face? He's going to face Fir'aun, a man who has caused a lot of harm. Even to him, Allah tells Musa alayhi salam to be what? To be gentle. Just be gentle. That's it. Right? And same command was given to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We don't see anywhere in the seerah of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam where he was very arrogant with his teachings. He was very humble. And even when people didn't realize he was a prophet, when the lady was crying in the grave over the loss of someone in the family, Rasulullah told her to hold on to her patience. And then what should she say? She said, what do you know? What do you know what I went through? Not realizing this is the Prophet. And then Rasulullah didn't say anything. He just left her to be, and he left. And then once she realized this was Rasulullah, she came to him. Said, I didn't know it was you. Then he said, patience is when calamity strikes you. You see, that's patience. Patience is not when calamity strikes you and then you abuse and accuse Allah, and then after a few years you say, I'm having sabr now. No. Sabr is as soon as calamity hits you, you're calm. You're calm and you say, look, Allah knows best. Maybe my life is not moving as I planned, but it's definitely in the part of Allah's plan. So let me be patient. Right? This is exactly what the Qur'an teaches us. Right? You open the Qur'an, it teaches a lot about what? Patience and patience and patience. Right? Yusuf alayhi salam, father was patient for how many years? Losing his son, and then in the process he also lost his sight. He said, Jamila, he said, Sabr al-Jamila, rather patient is what? It's beautiful patient. Beautiful words, beautiful patient. A father losing the beloved son and knowing that this was actually done by his siblings is even harder. But he had good hopes in Allah. You see, he had good hopes in Allah that one day Allah will bring his son back, and exactly how he intended, Allah brought back to him his son in a very high position. So sometimes when we lose something, we don't realize. But behind it, there is a big lesson for us to learn. Allah has His plans. We don't dictate terms here. We don't tell Allah how, we want our du'as to be accepted. Of course, we all want our du'as to be accepted, yeah. But we don't know if that du'a is actually accepted, will it help? I was told a story by someone that, there was a couple, I think they had one or two daughters. So they were persistently asking Allah for a son. They persistently asking Allah, Ya Allah, grant us a son, grant us a son. And then eventually they had a son. But this son was physically challenged. You see? Yeah, you asked for it, you got it, but it didn't really reach. Your dua was to have a son. But Allah gave you a physically challenged child. So that's why the ulamas tell us the best dua to make is to ask Allah to give you what is best in this world and to ask Him to give what is best in the hereafter. Because as human beings, we don't know what is best for us. We don't know. We are very short-sighted. Right? That's why ulama said the best of dua you can ask Allah, Ya Allah, grant me on this earth the best and in the hereafter the best. So leave it there, because then Allah will decide for you what is best. See, so this is how you have to educate people, and I know it's people take it very, very light, very, very light. Salah is not to be taken very light. It's very important, and this is exactly what shaitan wants you to do. Abandon your salah. But you need to understand, he never abandoned his salah. Shaitan himself never abandoned worshipping Allah. Right? He never. Then why is he asking you to do it? If I'm not going to commit a crime, and if I'm going to be smart enough to escape from it, why should I influence others to do it? But he did it. So you have to also tell people, look, did shaitan disobey Allah? Yes, he disobeyed. But before he disobeyed, did he obey Allah? Yes. There's not a place in the heavens and the earth where Iblis never did sujood. Right? He was from the jinn kind, but because of his worship and obedience to Allah, he was raised and even started to appear like an angel. Until he disobeyed Allah, where Allah disgraced him and his face, his look started to change. So if shaitan was very clever in upholding worshipping Allah, and he's coming and whispering to us, don't worship Allah, it's difficult, how can you do it in the workplace? Wallahi, this is really a test. And frankly speaking, I had no issues asking my employers, be it Muslim or non-Muslim, that I have to pray. That was one of my first conditions when I go for an interview. Once I'm selected, I tell them right there. I'll tell them, you can make it from my name, I'm a Muslim. And as a Muslim, I have to pray 5 times a day. So, please give me that, sanction me a time where, and of course, the employee will ask you, how long will it take? I said, maybe 10 minutes. They have no problem. And most of my non-Muslim employers become so accustomed to me praying, because they know lunch hours, I'll pray. So lunch hours, you never miss a salah. Because you go for lunch and you pray. So it just comes into you within your lunch hours. Especially Asr time, sometimes you forget. You're working on something and then it's Asr time and your boss comes and tells you, hey, aren't you supposed to pray now? You see? So Allah softens their heart too. So every employer knows, if someone is praying in their place, they feel it's blessed. They may not understand anything, but they feel someone doing some prayer in their office premises is a blessing for them. They have this thought. So never have the second thought. Can I, should I ask or not? No. That is a criteria. If I can't pray, we don't allow me to pray, fine, then don't pray in the office. You can do it in the corridor. Or if you have a park nearby, go to the park. Just, be in the state of ablution all the time. So time comes, just go, 10 minutes, you do your salah, come back. No harm, but I don't see any issues. I have never been stopped by any of my employers ever from performing my duties. So I don't see that's an issue. So inshallah, may Allah facilitate all of us. Anything else? Yeah.
One of the challenges I personally face is the concentration throughout the prayer. For example, I tell myself I'll concentrate, but then after the first rakat or the second rakat, I lose my concentration and then I think about something else. And then after the prayer, I think to myself, will my prayer be accepted or should I do the salah again?
Okay.
I face these kind of challenges. So how do I overcome?
Okay, your question can be divided into two, right? First one is khushu. Okay, he starts off, and then the second part where you feel that you didn't concentrate well, maybe you need to make up your salah. Now that part comes from shaitan, right? Because that's how shaitan will disturb you. Now, inshallah, in this series, as we go, I will be telling you the steps and the method of how you can enhance your concentration in your prayer. But to give you just a glimpse of what I'm going to present as time progresses, is that the recitation of the Qur'an plays a very, very big role in your khushu. You understand? So your salah and your Qur'an actually should go hand in hand. So that means we should also learn to improve the Quranic recitation with the proper tajweed and the maharij. Once you develop that, even if you know 1, 2, 4, even small surahs, but if you perfected it, inshallah your salah will be okay. Right? This is one method. And then when you make your wudu, the moment it's time for salah, when you make your wudu, make the niyyah, Ya Allah, and Ya Allah, facilitate me to stand before you with complete focus. You make this a dua in yourself. It's not something you make it, but this is a dua. You ask Allah to help you out. Remember, without Allah's aid, we can't achieve anything. And Allah knows that, but Allah wants you to ask. Simple. Dua, Allah knows your condition, but He wants you to ask. If you ask, you'll be given. So, in every salah, when you make your wudu, make this intention that, Ya Allah, facilitate me to stand in the salah with the maximum degree of khushu. Right? So when you start praying, initially you will have difficulties. But remember, salah is an exercise, right? The more you do, the more perfect it becomes. Right? Like for example, when I first started to pray, of course it was just people told me to pray, I prayed. They told me, we don't pray, then, you'll have serious consequences. So the first thing that was going on in my head when I was a young boy was, I don't want to face those consequences. But as you age, you start to develop. You realize, no, I have to improve my salah. And then in order for you to even develop your khushu, you should also try to perform your nafil and your sunnah on a regular basis. because there's where you exercise. For example, when you're doing a farad, you can't keep the Quran open and read. But if you're doing a sunnah, open the Quran and you read from the Quran. That's way you're engaged. And then pondering over the meanings of those ayahs will also help you what? Develop your khushu. Just verbally reading it in Arabic language that you don't understand a word, you can never develop khushu. That's why reciters of Quran who understand the meaning, they tend to cry. Why they cry? Because they understand what is being said. If you follow. Why are the imams who are leading Salah in Haramain are crying? And there are many other masjid I've prayed also. You know, the imam who has gone through the meaning will cry. Even if he doesn't cry, he will pause for a while. And you know why he's pausing there when there's no pause there? Because it's hitting him hard. So that shows his khushu. So to ponder over the meaning, to make your niyyah up front when you're making your wudu already, Ya Allah, to facilitate you, make the niyyah and then ask Allah to help you. And then to read the Quran in the way it is supposed to be read with measured tones. You see, the rhythmic tones are very, very important. Even raising of your hands and tying of your hands is a form of what? Focus. Right? When you tie your hands and you're looking down, that's focus already. So from very initial step you take until the last moment, inshallah, you should try. Of course, you will fail. But like I said, it's a process you have to learn. So once you understand the meaning of the adhkar you're making, right? Allahu Akbar. What does Allahu Akbar means? Okay, this is what you need to do. You leave the dunya behind and you're facing your Lord, and then you raise your hands up to your Lord. Ya Allah, I'm leaving everything. The dunya is, I'm leaving it behind to pray, worship you for next 10 minutes. Allahu Akbar means what? Allahu Akbar means Allah is the greatest. There is none greater than Him. You see, you ponder over the meaning and then you understand Allah is the greatest. And then you do your adhkar. Understand the meaning of the adhkar, the dhikr that you do before you start your Fatiha. Once you ponder, because there are beautiful du'as, yeah? Apart from the regular du'as you make, there are a lot of other supplications which have very deep meaning. Allahumma ba'id bayni wa bayna khatayaya. You know, this is beautiful. Ya Allah, distance me. Like you distance the east and the west. Distance me from sin like you distance them. And clean me like you have cleaned the cloth. It has deep meaning. So you ponder over the meaning. Okay, this is the reason I'm standing before Allah. I'm standing before Allah, so I'll be clean from my sins. You see, I'll become sinless, inshallah. And then you start, you read A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim in your heart, means, Ya Allah, I seek refuge with you from the accursed one. And then, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, you read in your heart. And then you start, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Allah, the praise be to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds. Now that is powerful. And then you ponder one by one, and then you move on to Qul Huwallahu Ahad. You say, okay, this is a scale of measuring, you know, your creator. Qul Huwallahu Ahad. Say Allah is one and only. Allahu Samad is absolute eternal. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. Doesn't beget, did not begotten. Wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. There's nothing like unto him. You see? So when you ponder over these ayahs, inshallah, you will inshallah improve your khushu. Right? And then each and adhkar try to also go through the meanings of those dhikr. Once you do that, inshallah, your salah will become very, very sweet. At the same time, also it is important that you also learn to memorize more surahs, because it will make no sense you're reading the same surah all the time. Right? You have to find a teacher. Don't memorize without a teacher, because you really need a teacher. Right? You can have a lot of other aids, you know, from YouTubes and books, but you definitely need a teacher, where you need to take the Qur'an and sit with the person and read, and then he will rectify you. Right? And then once you have a teacher, then all the other supporting devices just a complementary for you. So once you understand the maharij, the pronunciation of the Arabic language, how you're supposed to pronounce here, if you know the harakat, why the haraka is here so much, why the haraka is here so much, and then you start to indulge yourself into memorization of the Qur'an, and once you have memorized the surah, you put that to practice. Right? You memorize surah, half of the surah, now you go stand and pray. When you pray, you read it, you keep reading it. You see, so you have a target now. Once you set obligations, once you set focus, and once you set a target, then automatically focus comes, right? Like if, for example, if you're driving a car or a bike and if you're set to go at a certain speed and achieve a certain speed and reach to a certain destination within a given time, then your focus is there. Then you're casually driving. So if you're casually praying, then there's no focus. But if you know, and then the other important point in your salah is, which also I will ponder on it later as we progress, is that every time when you stand in your salah, remember this might be your last. Pray your prayer as if that is your last. That's it. After this salah, maybe Allah will not preserve you. Maybe your health is gone. Maybe you're dead. We don't know. You see, so if you have this thought that, Ya Allah, okay, you're going to stay for Isha, okay, maybe I may not wake up for Fajr. Maybe this is my last food I'm going to take, and this may be my last salah. So let me do it right. So once you develop this, inshallah, gradually you will improve your salah. It's not an issue. This is how my teachers taught me. This is how I learned teachers. And that's why I told my part one, the reason why I did this, conducting this workshop or this lecture series, is that I want everyone to benefit what I benefited. And more so, I'll give you one more hint which is not here. Remember, when a person stands out to pray, who prays with you? The angels, there are 2 angels are standing and praying with you when you're alone. So you're not praying alone. You're actually, from the hidden word, Allah sends 2 angels. You know what is the size of those angels? Each one is as big as a mountain. So you're the imam. You're the imam leading in salah and they're praying behind you. Allah appoints them for you. So if you have these things running through your head, that you're an imam and there are angels that you can't see, also following your instruction of command of Allahu Akbar, Sami Allahu liman hamida, Allahu Akbar, then your khushu will go up automatically. Then you know, oh, there's someone listening to my qira'ah. Right? So if you're in the house, you're doing your fitr, then you don't want to disturb anybody, just recite the Qur'an in a way that at least you can hear. And remember, angels love to listen to the Qur'an. Right? So if you want to make the angels part of your life, just open the Qur'an and start reading wherever you may be. Immediately the angels that are circulating, they'll just come start listening to you. So they become part of your life. So once you have angels listening to you, circulating above you, shaitan vacates that place. Right? There's no place for shaitan there. Right? So if you put all these things in your head before you start, inshallah, your khushu will gradually improve. Inshallah, it will work. May Allah facilitate all of us.
I wanted to ask one more question. Is that when we stand in salah, the prayers performed at night, we can recite it out loud, right? And then the salah or sunnah or nafal we perform during the day, we should recite it silently. And when we recite it silently, does it mean completely with no sound or no voice?
No.
Or without mumbling?
Okay. The way the scholars tell us, when you are quietly reading the Quran, you're not supposed to keep your mouth shut. Like, no. Because if you keep your mouth shut, you won't be able to pronounce any of the Arabic words. So the scholars tell us when you read silently, it doesn't mean absolute silent. Like you're quietly murmuring to yourself. No, you won't be able to. Then your Quran will all be incorrect. What you're supposed to do, you say Allahu Akbar, and then you read it in a way by opening your mouth, because there are a lot of alphabets where your tongue has to come out. There are a lot of alphabets where your tongue has to go all the way up. There are all the alphabets where it has to come low, little curved. There's so many movements. The Arabic alphabets is nothing but it's a tongue twister. I think it's for every language, right? There's a tongue twister. So how are you going to pronounce the if you don't bring your tongue out? The is all. The tongue has to come in between your teeth. So how we need to read? Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So you're not disturbing nobody. You can, as long as you can hear your own recitation, that is called silent reading. Right? So you don't go into a masjid and then, where other people are doing their worship and you just say, Alhamdulillah, like as if you are leading Salah. You don't scream out your recitation where others are getting disturbed. Right? There's not the way. But in your house, if there's nobody, then you really want to increase your volume, it's up to you. Increase as long as make sure that you're not causing others any disturbance. Remember, in the Islamic concept of worship, Islam minds the concerns of others. So much so that the scholars have said that a woman can fast. If it's a non-obligatory fast, she should ensure that daily activities are not affected. Right? If a woman wants to fast, but if that fasting is going to cost the family their lunch, dinner, or breakfast because she's fasting and this is a non-obligatory fast, then it's better she don't fast. For the ones, yes, she has to do it. But non-obligatory act of worship, she should do it in a way that it doesn't hinder her daily activities towards her family. Islam is very careful in all that. So there's no excuse for any one of us to say, no, I'm worshipping Allah, so even you get disturbed, I don't care. No. We don't do that. So suppose if brothers want to pray here, and they're praying so loud that others cannot converse, then there's a source of inconvenience to others. That's why one of the conditions of khushu is that you don't pray where people move around. You see, if you have a place where people are walking, you're not supposed to pray there. And today I've seen, when I travel to some Muslim countries, I've seen people will pray wherever they are doing their work. If the shop is there, they will just have a small carpet, they make wudu there, and they just pray there while people are just walking by. Now, number one, that is, you're causing trouble to the pedestrians. You're occupying a space where they need to safely walk. And then, no way you're going to develop khushu, because there's horn sound, people talking sound. How can you have khushu? Even if some brothers are praying, then we are talking, he can't. 50% of his concentration is listening to us. You follow? So one of the conditions, which we will also go through in detail as soon as we see the tips to develop, the conditions is that never pray your salah where there are people doing something, maybe businesses, trade, or whatever. You see? That's why from the classical time till today, in every Muslim country, we have a masjid in the middle of a marketplace. Why? So you come there and pray. Leave your trade aside, you come. Pray properly, go back. You see? This is a reason. Right? So your reading must be in a way, in a fashion that you can listen. Like this is enough, right? Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Nobody's going to be disturbed. Even when I wake up for Fajr at night, in the morning, I'm so careful that I wake up very quietly. Even when I want to go to the toilet to make my wudu, I shut the door very quietly. Because I don't want my ibadah to be a source of suffering for my family members. Right? There are times women cannot pray. So they're exempted. So I shouldn't just go bang the door, doom, doom, doom. Even when I'm going out to the masjid or to the markaz, I make sure I don't switch on any lights. I don't switch on any lights unless I'm waking up. Even when I wake up my family, because my son is still young, so I just switch off the toilet light where there's enough light for me to exit the house. And then I'll switch it off. I'll slowly open the door, slowly close, and slowly lock and leave. And when I come back, I do the same. I come very quietly. Even with all that, sometimes my family wakes up. They say, you're disturbing. I can't help it. I can't be more quiet than this. Otherwise, I need to jump off the window of the parachute. So you have to be considerate when you do your worship of other people. Very, very important, right? You should not do things that offends or hurts other people and disturbs them in their daily life, and then you just say, I don't care, I'm worshipping my Lord. This is not the way Rasulullah ever did that. That's what Rasulullah said. Every time I stand in prayer, I want to prolong my prayer. But when I hear children's cry, I shorten my salah. Prophet saying that. That's why the scholars say, the fard salah, if you're an imam, keep it as short as possible. Because they can be old amongst you, and weak amongst you, and young amongst you. Right? Not everyone will be having that energy. For me, as soon as Maghrib hits, I'm already tired. So if I go for Isha and the imam is reading half of Juz'u Amma, I'll be sleeping. But in Fajr, if the imam is reading long surahs, I have no issues. Because I'm all fresh. So it's beautiful. This is the deen of Allah. Very compassionate, even towards the worship of Allah. Right? So that's all. Then we'll conclude, inshallah. Then I'll see you for part 3 very soon. Inshallah. Wa then alhamdulillah rabbil alameen.
Allah is the one, the one, the one.